I want to talk a little bit about your music, man. So you have this new record coming out November 16th, I believe, 15th.
November 15th, yeah, but there's a show on the 16th, so it's kind of confusing. There's like 2 dates around, but yeah.
So talk to me about it.
So I started recording the second album like maybe December of last year, but it was like a really passive thing because again I was playing all these shows and I was doing all these things. So I started recording really, really slowly, and the album really ramped up in like summer of
Okay.
this year. And basically I was like, I don't know what to write about in the beginning of like or the end of last year. But then I started playing all these shows and then experiencing really what it was like to really like put my work into it as a musician in and for the first time I was an adult. I turned 18 like in 2022, 2023. I realized that there's so many things about growing up that you don't realize, and also just so many things about being a musician and being a consistent musician that I just never thought about. So one of the things that I started to experience was this feeling of I don't deserve all the good things that are coming to me. That's just because I'm not good enough. And then the next day, I would feel like, oh, I do deserve this because I'm like the king of the world and I'm like the greatest musician ever. And I, like, I do deserve all this stuff. Like I felt like I was being handed all these things. Some days I felt like I was being handed all these things because people thought I was really good, but they didn't realize how bad I actually was, and like, how much I faked to get up there, because they say fake it until you make it, and I faked it until I made it for in a couple ways. But I'm not saying that my work was not justified, but it felt like that sometimes. So like that's why I started writing this record called Imposter Syndrome, because there's like
Hmm.
days when you really feel that you don't deserve it, and then there's other days when you feel that you're at the top of everything, you're better than everyone. And that feeling of like going back and forth gets really confusing really fast
Yeah.
because you don't understand where in the lane you are. And
Hmm.
especially, I think, okay, so when I started as a producer and making my own music and I wasn't doing live shows, this bothered me to an extent, but not really. Like, it was just like, oh, do people really like my music, or are they just saying it just because they're nice to me? And then I started playing the shows, and then I realized that there was a pressure of like, will people come to more shows if they find out that like I'm really not as good as what I was? And the pressure of playing every show after that, no matter what it was, became a I gotta play this to the best of my ability, otherwise they'll just give up on me. And that I really found that to not be necessarily true. Like, I mean, as I played more shows, I'll start to allow myself to really just have the bad show every now and then. Like, it's not a big deal. When I was starting, I was really scared of that. I was really scared of having a
Hmm.
bad show, and I don't have that many bad shows, but I look back at shows sometimes, and I'm just like, well, what did people think of me? Like, everybody said good job to me, but like, did they really, like, were they in the back cringing about my music? I don't know. So it's like that feeling of up and down. So I started writing about it, and I made a record about it. And I think like one of my favorite lyrics in the album goes, I built a castle on a hill of sand. I sat on a throne and held the kingdom in my hand. And then and I made them think I could do it all, but soon they'll see everything that I'm doing wrong. And it's just that kind of feeling of like, I know that what I'm doing, it's just that false feeling of self-doubt, right?
Hmm.
It's like, I, I know it's not true, but at the same time, I just feel like people hate me and people hate the music and they're just being fake, right?
Hmm.
I don't know. It was just a mix of that. I think I've always felt that kind of fear, but I really started writing about it because of the live shows and the pressure of being watched all the time. And I also climbed up the music scene a little bit. More people started to know who I was. More people started to know my name. And when you have that name, I really want to like keep that reputation up, right?
Hmm.
So that self doubt, um, I think the end of the record, when I was finishing it, I think I finally came to peace with the fact that I'll never get rid of this self doubt, but I have to learn how to live with it, because that's the only way. Like, you're as an artist, you're always going to be super critical of yourself. I'm sure you know that of yourself as well. But like, I think that part of it is just ignoring that critic in you and realizing that not everybody sees what you see, and not everybody is seeing your music. Most people are seeing your music in a positive light anyways. So I'll always have days for the rest of my life. I'll have days when I wake up and I'm like, I don't know why I'm doing this. But then I remind myself that I am someone who has done like things of great skill, and I deserve these things, and I have to I have to kind of remind myself of that, not in an arrogant way, like, oh, I'm great, so they gave it to me. But at the same time, like, you worked hard, so you you got that, right? But it's that up and down that led me to write this.